Welcome to Twistem TV, where reality bends, secrets surface, and nothing is what it seems. I'm your narrator, your guide through the strange and the unsettling. And today I have a new story to tell. She woke up to an empty room. Her son gone without a trace. No one remembered him. No documents, no photos. Not even the school had his name. Was she losing her mind? Or was something much darker at play? This is not just a story about a missing boy. It's about a system built to erase him, and every mother who dared to speak the truth. Waking up that morning felt different. Marina knew it. The silence in the house, the neatly made bed, and the half-open wardrobe all seemed to scream something her mind refused to accept. Raphael, her 7-year-old son, was not in his room. Not in the yard. Not anywhere. Her first reaction was logical. Maybe he had gone to play at Joãozinho's house. But Joãozinho had been sick with the flu for days. Marina ran through the village, knocking on doors, asking everyone. No one had seen the boy. Not that day. Not the day before. By late afternoon, desperate, she went to the police station. The boy's full name? Asked Officer Moreira, without taking his eyes off the radio. Rafael Teixeira da Silva, my son. Birth certificate? She hesitated. In Boa Esperança, documents always came late. Rafael had been born at home, delivered by the midwife, Dona Eulalia. Marina kept saying she'd get everything in order, but life was hard. Her sewing barely paid for rice. I haven't gotten one yet, but I can bring witnesses. The officer leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Marina, are you sure this boy ever existed? She felt the ground vanish beneath her. What do you mean? I went to the school. No enrollment record. No one remembers seeing him there. Not at the clinic. Not at church. Not at the market, nothing. Marina returned home as if floating through a nightmare. Raphael's clothes were still in the drawer, his drawings still held up by magnets on the fridge. But when she tried to show them to her neighbor, Sita, the pages were gone. You're probably just tired, Mari, working too much. Maybe you dreamed it. Grief can trick us sometimes. Grief? She screamed. I'm his mother. I gave birth to that boy. He slept beside me since the day he was born. That night, no one listened. And no one would speak of Raphael again in the days that followed. The next morning, Marina went to the home of the midwife who had delivered her baby, Dona Eulalia, an 82-year-old woman who lived near the entrance to the village. In her bag, Marina carried a notebook where, years before, she had glued Raphael's first lock of hair. Dona Eulalia, you remember my son's birth, don't you? The old woman sitting in a straw chair looked at her for a long moment, then answered emotionless. I don't remember delivering a baby for you. I remember you as a child, yes. But you never came here with a big belly. Marina felt her stomach twist. A cold sweat broke over her skin. That can't be. You helped me. The cord was wrapped around him. He cried in my arms. I think you're confused. Confused? She rushed back home and looked for the notebook. Where the envelope with the lock of hair used to be, there was only dried glue. The boy's clothes? Gone. The tree drawing he used to scribble every day? Nothing. The top bunk mattress where he slept was now flat, neatly made, as if no one had ever laid there. The house was being erased. She went to the public school, struck up a conversation with the teacher. Miss Jeanette, my son Raphael was in your class last year. What did you do with his file? The woman frowned. Raphael, I'm sorry, Marina. I think you're mistaken. I've never taught any Raphael who was your son. She ran to the school office, asked for the records. There was nothing. No Rafael Teixeira da Silva. No enrollment under her name as guardian. The coordinator tried to be kind. Have you considered seeking psychological help? There are professionals who deal with this kind of symbolic grief. Sometimes the mind creates memories to cope with loss. Loss? What was she losing other than her very life being wiped away? That night, Marina cried, clutching an old toy hidden beneath the floorboards. A little blue car Raphael used to hide whenever they played hide and seek. It was the only proof he had existed. Or was that too an invention? With the little blue car in her hands, Marina went to the local radio station, where Father Elias hosted a weekly program about faith and morality. She hoped he could help her make an appeal. Maybe ask anyone who had seen Raphael to call in, or at least let her share her pain. Father Elias was beloved in the town, one of the few people with real influence. Marina, my child, he said as he led her into a quiet room. You seem very shaken. There are troubling rumors about your mental health. What do you say we talk calmly without causing a stir? She placed the little car on the table. This is all I have left of him. Tell me, Father, if I'm making this child up, why would I be left with this pain? Father Elias looked at the object with a neutral expression. Then calmly he answered, sometimes the devil deceives us through emotion. Maybe your suffering is real, but its source isn't what you believe it to be. So you think I'm crazy too? I think you're suffering, and you need care. The next day, a social worker knocked at her door, accompanied by 2 police officers. We received an anonymous report. You're being referred for a temporary psychiatric evaluation at the regional hospital. This is absurd, she shouted, but it was no use. At the station, Officer Marina awaited her with a sheet of paper in hand. Sign here, Marina. It's just to ensure your cooperation. She refused. They took her by force. Days passed at the hospital. They gave her medication, asked vague questions, tried to convince her that her son was a manifestation of grief from a miscarriage. Years ago, something she barely remembered. The psychiatrist smiled gently, but everything about her felt rehearsed, as if she were following a script. Marina spent 7 days there. When she returned home, she found the door broken in. The few photos she had hidden were torn apart. The little blue car, destroyed. On the living room wall, someone had written in charcoal, "What never existed cannot be searched for." She fell to her knees. It was a trap, and she had walked right into it. Marina decided that if no one believed her, she would have to find proof on her own. The only concrete clue lay in a corner of her memory, an old notebook where Raphael used to draw the same image over and over, a twisted tree with a window behind it. She didn't know where he had seen it, but she suspected it was real. She began scouring the town in search of similar trees, until one day, while walking near the grounds of the old parish house, now abandoned and hidden by tall grass, she saw it, a dry ipe tree, with crooked branches exactly like the drawing, and yes, there was a window behind it. She entered the property. The house was in ruins, but still standing. She stepped carefully through rubble and dust, until she found a small room locked with chains. There were marks, small handprints, scratched into the wood. Her throat tightened. "Raphael," she whispered. Marina broke the door open with a rock. Inside, there was only an iron bed, a bucket, and on the walls, dozens of childlike scribbles. The tree, the little car, a woman's face with eyes crossed out, boys' names, some faded, some repeated. One of them jumped out at her, Henrique, 1984. Her memory sparked. When she was 12, Marina had overheard her mother whispering with the neighbors about a woman from the village who had been found dead in the reservoir. Days after reporting her son missing, a boy named Henrique, and how the priest at the time had said the woman suffered from mental imbalance. Everything was starting to make sense. That night, Marina didn't sleep. She searched the old school records in the basement of City Hall, claiming she was doing research on the town's history. Among the moldy folders, she found a school notebook dated 1984. Inside, the name Henrique Costa was written in a child's handwriting. Alongside it, there was a drawing, the same little blue car, the same tree, the same woman's face with the eyes crossed out. The echo of an old pain repeated like a cycle, and everything led back to the church. That night brought heavy rain, the kind that isolates small villages. But Marina, soaked in her plastic raincoat and with aching knees, walked to the back sacristy of the church. She was determined. She knew Father Elias hid more than advice and sermons. She waited for the last mass to end. Then she slipped inside quietly. She wasn't looking for comfort anymore. She was looking for names, truths, remnants. On the back wall, behind a heavy cabinet full of framed prayers, she discovered a concealed trapdoor. She descended with her cell phone flashlight trembling in her hand. The church basement was damp, smelling of rotting paper and old incense. There were boxes of yellowed documents, folders of baptisms, confirmations, and loose notes. Dates, boys' names, most between 6 and 10 years old, all with common surnames, with no cross-referenced school records. Flipping through quickly, Marina found Raphael's file. Raphael T.S., taken in on 9/03/2009, lost in 2016. The word lost was in quotation marks, and he wasn't the only one. Enrique 1984, Jonas 1991, Leandro 1999, Raúl 2003. A sequence of names, always 7 years apart, all missing, all without birth certificates, all recorded only there. And next to each name, a strange symbol, an inverted cross inside a circle. Marina took the files with her, but as she stepped out of the church, someone was waiting at the door. "You've gone too far, Marina," said Father Elias, his voice calm. "You're hurting yourself. You're hurting people's faith." She held up the documents with trembling hands. "This is real. They existed. I can prove it." These are old notes without context, probably part of the charity work with abandoned orphans. Nothing more. Then why hide it in the church basement? The priest stepped closer. "Because people's faith can't bear all truths, not even yours." The next morning, the files had vanished from Marina's home. But she had taken photos, scanned everything, sent it to a journalist in St. Louis. This time, even if they tried to erase the story, there would be records. 2 weeks later, the report aired. The Village of the Erased Boys, written by a young journalist named Natalia Amaral. The story went viral. Names, dates, hidden connections between disappearances, and the omission of official records. The article cited documents found in the church, testimonies from longtime residents, and the persistence of a woman no one could call crazy anymore. Marina began to be interviewed, followed by reporters, looked at with reverence and fear. "Aren't you afraid of revenge?" one of them asked. She answered calmly, "I was afraid when I thought it was just my pain. Now I know it was the pain of many mothers before me." The public outcry was so great that the state's public prosecutor's office opened an investigation. They searched the old parish house, the church basement, forgotten archives. More than 30 cases were reopened. Some families, who had buried their suffering under a shroud of shame or doubt for decades, began to come forward. "I had a son too. They told me he was stillborn," said a 70-year-old woman in tears. "But they never let me see the body." Father Elias was removed. He denied everything until the end. But as soon as the scandal exploded, he disappeared, vanished in the dead of night, leaving behind only a handwritten note with a single sentence. What never existed is what haunts us the most. Over time, Marina left Boa Esperanza. She moved to the countryside of Goiás, took on a new name. But in her new home, she still keeps the little blue toy car, patched with hot glue and tape. And every year on September 3rd, she lights a candle at the foot of a twisted tree, one she planted with her own. Hands in the backyard. "There," she says, Raphael plays in silence. "There, no one can erase him again." For years, Marina was silenced, labeled crazy, but the evidence she uncovered speaks louder than any denial. And now that the truth is out, the question remains, how many more have been erased? If you believe stories like this need to be told, like, share, and subscribe. Help give a voice to the voices they tried to silence.